And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network dedicated to covering Indiana women's basketball. Today is our 159th episode, recorded on the afternoon of Sunday, March 23rd, 2025. And I'm your host, Kathy Amos, running solo once again tonight. But today we will be discussing your Indiana Hoosiers' loss to South Carolina in the NCAA tournament, 53-64. That brings their season to an end, and their final record will stand at 20-13. But we will start our show as we do every show, and that's with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And, I was really struggling to figure out a banner moment, something from the actual game. And so instead, I'm just going to talk about, in general, a big thank you to our three seniors. So we had three players today step on the court and take that Indiana jersey on for the last time in their careers. And we'll say a special thank you to Sydney Parrish, Chloe Moore McNeil, and Caroline Striplin, who I thought all three brought some intensity, maybe not execution from all three, but they brought the intensity and the love of their Indiana really showed through, I thought, on that court today from the time that the ball was tipped until that final buzzer. Again, even though with a loss, we did not quit in this game. And so that for me is just our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And as always, our Hoosier Proud banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, the presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, dedicated to covering, which also includes Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing product line. And if you're not following them on Twitter right now, you have no idea how much they're coming out with stuff all the time. In fact, I think I saw Charles Barkley was holding up one of their Home Field shirts earlier in one of the shows that he was doing. So go out to homefieldapparel.com. And if it's your first time ordering, get our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. Again, that promo code is HOME23 for 15% off. The website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right. Well, since we just did a show here on Friday, we don't really have any new news headlines to jump into. Jeff, again, is still on vacation with his lovely wife, and so we will not have any Marlowe's Musing. So we are going to jump right into the game today. So we'll talk about some pivotal plays and just some kind of general themes that I think, at least for me, I saw during the game. So here we are with going into South Carolina and Columbia, right? And playing the number 2 overall seed, a number 1 seed, one of the 4 number 1 seeds on their home court in a very packed arena, very loud arena. And I thought, especially in that first half, our team came out focused and ready to play. So let's talk about the first quarter. I think just in general, the first and the second quarter was the theme for me was defense. So we forced 3 South Carolina turnovers early. The unfortunate thing is we just really couldn't capitalize on them. But boy, we continue to play good defense throughout this entire quarter. The thing that really stuck out to me offensively in that quarter is that we kept continuing to drive the ball. And I thought South Carolina was just a little too long for us, at least at the beginning, and we just kept getting blocked. And in fact, South Carolina had 3 within 6 minutes. But one thing that was really noticeable back again on the other end, I think defense again is the name of the game here for us today, was we were really packing the paint. So we definitely had done a really good scout on South Carolina and realized some of their players like Kits really typically doesn't shoot from the outside, and our team really knew what their defensive assignment was, and we packed that paint in there. So it was a number of times we saw Caroline Striplin doing this, right, where her player would get the ball outside the 3-point line, and she wouldn't even leave the lane. Sydney did that a number of times as well. But our 3 ball just wasn't falling. We'll talk about that more when we get into the notable numbers here. But we talked about that on Friday together, right? That one of the keys of this game is probably going to be our 3 ball falling. And it just wasn't there for us today, especially in that first half. One thing that kind of jumped out to me, though, is, clearly South Carolina knew about Yarden as well and were really defending her pretty hard. But she did a nice job, I thought, getting the ball went down to people when we needed her to. So she got the ball one time to Striplin, who got it up for 2. And that's when we finally tied it at 9-9. And then we had a nice defensive stop again. And then Chloe came down on the other end and went and made a 3-pointer and put us up 12-9. That put us on a 10-2 run. And in fact, that is where we would end that first quarter at 12-9. So a very low scoring first quarter. I don't know this for a fact, but I would be really surprised if that 9 points was not South Carolina's lowest output in terms of points on the year. So then we go into the second quarter with that 3-point lead, and Yarden, again, with that theme that we're talking about with defense, gets a really great steal, who got it to Lexi, who had this beautiful no-look pass to Shea on the corner, who put it up, I think, for a 3-pointer, and that put us on now a 10-0 run. Lily came in today, and I thought she gave us some nice minutes. She had a really nice block, and then on the other end, Sydney got her the ball down low, and she went up and under and put it in for 2. It was just a really nice move. In fact, I remember seeing, I think it was Quang in our Discord chat during the game say it felt kind of like Mackenzie with her footwork. It was, again, not something we saw from Lily all year. But that up and under move was just really a beautiful little move that she had. And then again, continuing that theme that we started to see in the first quarter, where we were really trying to get the ball into the paint, Chloe Moore McNeil drives and is fouled, but she finishes and gets fouled. Unfortunately, she missed her free throw coming back from the media timeout. But then, South Carolina is South Carolina, #1 seed for a reason. They went on a 10-2 run that got them back into the game and tied it 21-21. Then we had a couple of possessions with some careless turnovers. Sydney lost the ball. Yarden stepped out of bounds. And then we finally got Sydney with her first bucket, where she hit a 3 at 1:02 left in that quarter to put us up 26-23. South Carolina would score one more time in that quarter, but we would go into the halftime 26-25 with a 1-point lead. Again, similar to what I'm guessing, I have no basis for this, but I would suspect that 25 points from South Carolina has to be some of their lowest output in in a half this year, especially knowing that South Carolina averages around 81 points per game. 25 has to be well under their mark. And again, when we get to notable numbers here in a minute, which we'll zoom into and start diving into the numbers and tell the story of the game through the numbers, I think we'll probably talk about that in general, how we held them well below their average. So anyway, we go into halftime with a 1-point lead, and we come back out, and boy, South Carolina really just made a point to blitz us down low. They just were getting anything they wanted going to that bucket. Chloe Kitts, who had to sit most of the first half with a couple of fouls, she didn't have any points in that first half. She came out and had 7 points in just over 4 minutes. And again, just getting a little bit sloppy again with the ball. We had 2 back-to-back turnovers, with South Carolina just picking 2 of our guards' pocket, both first Shea and then Chloe Moore McNeil, just at the top of that key. And now all of a sudden, South Carolina is outscoring us 20-7 in a 6-minute run. And it just was, it kind of felt like that was where the game was pretty much lost for us, was in that first 6 minutes of that third quarter. We just really couldn't seem to stop them at all. Chloe Kitts had, like I mentioned, she hit the 3 out there. But, we just couldn't seem to hit any shots. Our 3-ball just wasn't falling. What I thought was good is we continued on with our theme. Like, again, we're playing South Carolina, who not only do they put up a lot of points, we actually were playing the team that has the most points in the paint in the country. And at one point, at least at the half, we were tied with them 12-12 for points in the paint. But boy, they really showed in that third quarter why they were the #1 team with points in the paint. In fact, South Carolina would go on and shoot 73% in that quarter and outscores 26-14. So remember what the score was at halftime, 26-25. They scored more points in that third quarter than they did in that entire first half. So really that's where that game was lost for us. So then we get to the fourth quarter where we end up tying or playing even 13-13 with them in that quarter. But Shea was forcing some turnovers, but we just couldn't convert on a fast break. Sydney got her fourth foul and had to come out with 5.5 minutes. That was an interesting one to me, knowing that this is a win or go home situation. I almost wonder, even though Sydney wasn't putting up a lot of offensive numbers for us, I wonder if maybe we could have just kept her out there anyway. But regardless, coach took her out at 5:33, and like I said, we ended up playing them even. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into some of the numbers here, since I've been kind of mentioning them as well. So yeah, we really had to, I'll mention some of these comments here from people in the chat. Thanks for all those watching here today that are watching live. Yes, they really ran Yarden pretty ragged tonight. Eagle Eye, I thought their defense on Yarden was a big reason why we didn't see her with her normal point production. She just wasn't getting what we normally would have been able to get for her. Plus, on top of it, the shots just weren't falling. Yes, I agree. Sarcastic Mike, I thought our ball movement was looking pretty good today. Actually, we were definitely doing what we wanted to. It's just the balls are the shots weren't always falling. And yeah, we really had to work for everything that we had. And yeah, South Carolina really has some length on us. And so they were able to get some good blocks, I think, on some of our shots. So why don't we just go ahead now and jump into some of the numbers. So we'll look here at some of the team numbers. So for the first half field goal percentage, we outshot South Carolina at 40%. And no, at one point we opened up the game like at 22%. So we really finished that half pretty good. And we held South Carolina to 34% shooting. We would go on and finish the game at 41% from with our total field goals. South Carolina, obviously, shooting 73% in that third quarter. They ended up shooting 44% from the field. So I mentioned three-pointers was just something we really needed to watch. I was hoping we'd get closer to our average and hit maybe some double digits, but unfortunately we didn't. We only made 7 of 20 from three-point land for 35%. South Carolina just doesn't take and make a lot of threes, so that was pretty typical today. They only took 4 in the first half. They took 13 overall and were 5 of 13 for 38%. From 3 points. So I mentioned the points in the paint. So let's see where we ended up. So I mentioned at halftime, we were 12 and 12. Yes, that third quarter really bumped South Carolina up, and they ended up outscoring us in the paint 22-30. So there's your 8 points right there. In an 11-point game, 8 of those points in the paint, probably a good chunk of them in the third quarter. Second chance points, really not a factor for either team. In fact, Indiana had 0 second chance points today. South Carolina had 5. So yeah, we ended up with only 2 offensive rebounds to 8 for South Carolina. And that's probably not a good recipe for success as well. Now I get it. South Carolina is a little bit bigger than us. They also have quite a bit more length on us. So here we are today with our last one. So the other big one, which is also not a surprise, we talked on Friday together that South Carolina is a very, very deep team. South Carolina ended up playing a good chunk of all of their players again. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players in double-digit minutes. Their bench outscored us 19-4. So our 4 points came from Lily Meiser with her 13 minutes. So we technically played 8 people deep here today, but Hannah Sandvik only had 3 minutes coming off of the bench. So we really only ended up playing 7 deep against a much more talented and deeper South Carolina team. Probably just wasn't going to break our way today without a lot of luck. At the line. So, from the 3-point line. So the other place that kind of jumps out to me are blocks. We had 2 blocks to 7 for South Carolina. Again, I think their length caused us some trouble in that middle, and they were really just running us off of the 3-point line as well, just not getting the clean looks that we normally would have liked to get. Turnovers, and we should talk about them. As I mentioned, I thought this was a bit of a sloppy game for us, especially in spurts. So we ended up with 16 turnovers. We had 8 in the first half, so 8 and 8 in each half. In terms of points off of them, South Carolina turned those into 18 points off of our turnovers. On the flip side of that, South Carolina had we forced them to 12 turnovers and turned that into 12 points of our own. So again, that was a lopsided number for South Carolina in their favor. So really at the end of the day, like we talked about it, the the name of the game was that third quarter again for this. So I thought that the length of South Carolina was giving us some problems, and just their defensive way of getting us off of the 3-point line was just something that we knew was going to probably happen. So overall, we cannot complain, I don't think, about our defense. Again, South Carolina averages 81 points per game. We held them to only 64 points per game. And again, if you take that third quarter out, or at least even cut that down a little bit, we're right in this game again with South Carolina. So I'm really proud of our players today. I thought they all came out, they played hard. Maybe again, not the execution that we would have wanted for all of them, but that's kind of where we're at again. So those are some of the team numbers. So I thought I would now jump into some of our awards, and first start with game ball, and we'll talk about some of the individual performances during these segments. So if you're watching live or after the fact on YouTube, you can see our numbers here. Yarden Garzone leads the way with game balls at 8. Sydney Parrish 7, Chloe Moore McNeil 6, Shay Chesky with 5, Lily Meister and Caroline Striplin each with 3. So let's talk about some of the individual performances. So we had 4 of our players get double-digit points for us today. Yarden Garzone with 10, Chloe Moore McNeil with 10, Shay Chesky with 12, and Caroline Striplin with 11. Sydney Parrish, let's talk about her for a minute. So Sydney ended up with those 4 personal fouls and had to sit again. She had 3 turnovers. She did have 4 rebounds to her game, but she ended up with only 6 points, with 2 of 7 shooting, including 2 of 5 from the line. So unfortunately, when you have a 5th-year senior like that and playing against a South Carolina team, getting only 6 points from her, again, was not going to be a recipe for success today. So yeah, so that's where we're at with Sydney. Yarden as well, not the offensive production that we would normally see from her from a points perspective. I don't necessarily think it was that Yarden was having a bad game personally. I think it was just South Carolina really keyed in on her, and she really had a rough shooting night. So she ended up 4 of 13, including 2 of 7 from 3-point land for her 10 points. She ended up with 8 rebounds as well. So she was really out there hustling. She ended up playing 37 minutes, the most of anyone on the team. Then you have Caroline Striplin. I thought our game plan was to really try to get the ball down low. Caroline ended up with 26 minutes, had 11 points for us. The thing that kind of jumps out to me here, only 1 rebound. And again, from your starting center, I think you expect to get more rebounds than just 1. And I don't know if I mentioned that, yes, South Carolina did out-rebound us 27-37. So that we just need a little bit more. We need a little more from Caroline. And then that leaves us with Shay Chesky with her 12 points, 1 assist, 1 steal. Only 1 turnover from Shay today. That was that one where she had her pocket picked. And then we finally will get to Chloe Moore McNeil, our 5th-year senior, who played all 5 of her years with us at Indiana. So Chloe ended up with 10 points. All of those 10 points are in the first half. She also had 4 rebounds. Also, 3 rebounds and 4 assists. She did have 3 turnovers, but her defense and the commentators on TV maybe aren't always the best if they can't even get the name of the university correct. But one thing they did get correct is they did mention at one point, if you're ever wondering who Indiana is most concerned about for for scoring, because Chloe is guarding her. And that is what we saw today. And so I thought that in general, we just played more under control when Chloe was out there. She had amazing defense. And even though she didn't necessarily lead the team in scoring, I am going to go ahead and give Chloe a game ball for her today. And so that takes Chloe now to 7 game balls. That is where she will end the season. So here we go. we will now go over to Grace Berger, hardest worker. Again, we have a lot of players that had one of these awards this year. Shay Chesky, Sydney Parrish with 6, Chloe Moore McNeil, Yarn Garzone with 5, Caroline Striplin with 3, Lily Meister with 4, and then Jules, Hannah Sandbeck, and Faith Wiseman with 1 each. So I kind of ran down all of the numbers already. So one I'm going to key in on, I thought came out of Shay Chesky. I thought that she would really had some hard play today. Again, not the gaudy stat line, but she did lead the team in scoring with 12 points. She also had an assist and a steal to her name and only 1 turnover. She was 5 of 10 from field goal, including 2 or 3 from 3-point land. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and give, Shay her the Grace Berger hardest worker of the year, and that will put her in the lead to end the year at seven awards for her. Okay, we'll jump then. We were also doing some numbers watch. So this is where we ended up on the year, with who we were watching. So Chloe Moore McNeil, she ended up her career now at Indiana with 1,152 points. And with her 3 more assists today, that will end her career at 507. So she ends up, I think, at 5th in the all-time assist leader of the year, or for her career. She would have needed 528th to get to 4th place. So just a great career out of Chloe Moore McNeil. And we will, I am sure Jeff and I will have a postseason recap of both people as well as our team in general. So we'll leave that for her and some more accolades there. And then Yarden, she also made it to that 1,000 point career. As of right now, she's at 1,206. And then with her 3-pointers today that she had, she is ending this year at 220. Of course, we hope and assume that Yarden will be back for next year, and we will continue to watch that, assuming that happens next year. We would normally be talking about our upcoming game, but obviously the season has now come to an end. And as I mentioned, Jeff and I will be doing a recap show, but I do want to remind everybody where we were back in November and just talk about how this team came together and the coaching job that we had from Coach Morin. If you remember, after the Harvard loss, and then especially that loss to Butler, I think we were all a little concerned at that point in terms of what was going on with our team. But boy, they really turned it around and went down to the Bahamas and turned it around and made it to their 6th NCAA tournament in a row, 6 in a row, and 6 wins in a row, and had yet another 20-win season. Again, Coach Morin has had a 20-win season in every year that she has coached outside the very first one that she did. So that is where we will end up. I think, again, I'm just overall, I'm pretty happy with our team today. We just couldn't quite hold on in that 3rd quarter. So let's just quickly talk, though. The tournament is still going on for a number of Big Ten teams. We saw a number of them to get some action on Friday with wins coming from Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon beat Vanderbilt in that game. Nebraska lost to Louisville, and UCLA just pounded Southern on Friday. Yesterday, we had Iowa handle Murray State quite handily, 92-57. USC as well handled their game. I'm going to read the score, and yes, it is not a mistake. They won 71-25. So they held UNC Greensboro to 25 points. Then Maryland won their game over Norfolk State. That was a little touch and go for a while, but they really opened it up in the second half. Michigan State handled Harvard 64-50, and then Illinois as well won their game 66-57 over Creighton. So all Big Ten teams yesterday ended up winning. Today, we had Oregon already play, and they took on a number 2 seed Duke. They took Duke down to the wire. It ended up losing that game 53-59. And then Michigan, it just ran into a buzzsaw with Notre Dame. They lost to them earlier today, 55-76, so 21-point loss. So still coming up today, we have Tennessee and Ohio State playing, and then Richmond and UCLA will both play later in the evening. And then tomorrow, as I mentioned, we had 5 teams play on Saturday. So 5 teams play tomorrow from the Big Ten. Michigan State will take on North Carolina State. Illinois will go up against number 1 seed Texas. Iowa will be playing against Oklahoma. Alabama and Maryland will play. Alabama and Maryland, the winner there will take on South Carolina then in that Sweet 16 matchup. And the Mississippi State versus USC will be playing tomorrow as well. So still a lot of great basketball going on, especially with the Big Ten as well. So again, want to thank everybody here for all of the encouragement in the chat. Sometimes these solo shows can be kind of hard. So it's great to have all of you with me here today. So I'll go ahead and give my final thoughts and then we'll wrap it up. Obviously, we don't have another game coming up to highlight as well. And we don't know when our next podcast will be. But just overall, I'm really, really happy about how we are. So yes, it is interesting to think about what if we would have been a 10 seed instead of a 9 seed, right? We wouldn't have been taking on a number 1 team in South Carolina. Things could have been differently, but I'm not going to complain. I thought that they did a really good job. It just, you take out part of that third quarter and we could be talking about an upset here today. They definitely came out. They knew their scouting report. It was obviously a well-coached team, a well, for the most part, executed. And just a couple things break our way. And I think, again, we're talking about a whole different situation. But overall, I'm really proud of our ladies. They came out, they gave their all, they left it all on the court. And I don't think we would ever complain, or no one would ever say a Coach Morin's team doesn't do that. From the time the game starts to the time the game ends, you know that they're going to be giving you 125%. So proud of our players and really proud of our team. So those are my final thoughts for today. Okay, so as I mentioned, in terms of what's next for the show, just keep an eye on our Twitter feed, or if you're in Substack with us there in our private community, we will let you know. Most likely, Jeff and I, during the off season, we like to broadcast during the Wednesday evenings. It tends to work better with our schedule, but we don't have anything set in stone yet. But we will definitely be doing some recap shows of both the team as a whole, as well as some individual performances. I'm sure during the off season, we might try to line up some special guests if we can, as well as starting to highlight later on in the year what some of the teams might look like next year. We'll start talking about some of our freshmen. As I mentioned last time, one of our freshmen coming in was just named Miss Basketball for the state of Indiana. So we will start highlighting some of that. I am sure there is going to be some portal movement. So hopefully we don't lose any players to the portal, but I think there's definitely some room here to talk about some transfers coming in. So most likely Jeff and I will again go to Wednesdays, probably every other Wednesday or so during the off season, unless something really exciting happens. If we get any more transfers in that are especially exciting for us. So, but anyway, keep an eye on our Twitter account. If you don't follow us there, you can find us there. You can also see us do the show live and be part of our live chat. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be part of our private community that I mentioned. You can find out more information on that at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design for designing our logos. A big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout our broadcast. But most of all, thank you all for listening live if you're here or after the fact. Either way, we appreciate all of you. And we will be back to talk hoops with you in the near future. But until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers. All right. Well, thanks everyone for being with us here. I know there's a number of regulars out there in our chat. I always appreciate you guys being here, even with Jeff here, but especially with Jeff not being here. I feel like you guys are keeping me company still. So appreciate it. It's been a fun year. Maybe, it didn't go to that Sweet 16, but heck, you know what? At one point, I wasn't even sure we'd make the tournament the way things were looking at the beginning of the year. So this was just another great year from our women. We'll talk about it soon again, so hopefully we'll see you then. But until then, I hope everyone has a wonderful Sunday. Enjoy watching more hoops out there. There's going to be some more really great games. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.